Welcome back to the Royal Chronicles. I'm Hannah, one of your hosts, and I'm here with Luke.
Hello again.
We're really glad you're joining us. This is, I believe, season 2, episode 5, which is kind of amazing. That makes it 11 in total.
We're getting through episodes a lot faster since the new year.
And I'm particularly excited about today's episode because I've been thinking about it for a while. I think I mentioned in the last episode or maybe a Tea and Shenanigans episode, we were going to be talking about this because this particular story to me is something straight out of a movie, straight out of a novel or something. But today we're all the way over in Japan, which is quite a departure from where we've been, mostly in Europe. And so it's going to be quite a different setting today. Luke, you are the brain of this episode for the most part, because I know this specific story, but the background you're gonna have to lead us through. But before we get to that, of course, thank you for all of your comments, reaching out with suggestions. The engagement on YouTube has been really great recently. We really appreciate it. If you're not already, like, follow, subscribe. We're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or I guess it's X now technically, TikTok, and YouTube. That's pretty much it. And Luke, let's get into it.
So today we're going to be looking at a member of the Imperial House of Japan, or former member of the Imperial House now.
Mm-hmm. And I hope I'm saying this right. Her name is Mako Komuro. Now, I guess we're just going to refer to her as she's now a former member of the royal family. So she was born Princess Mako, yes. And she is the granddaughter of the current emperor. Is that correct? Niece. I knew that because she's not. It's not her father is not the emperor.
He's the crown prince.
Right. Okay. So, but before we get into her specific story, because it's very modern, as of I think just a couple years ago, it was kind of updated. But Japan is the oldest hereditary monarchy in the world. Correct?
Yes, their claim is that they have been the same family ruling in the country for 3,000 years.
So it's more than the
of
Persian
course.
Empire.
Yeah, so it's more than the Persians. It's more than the Chinese. Well, the Chinese have been gone for a while before they ceased to exist. The British, yeah.
Yes, but this is kind of contested because a lot of generations back in the past are considered to be legendary, but the Imperial House still counts them.
It's still a long time.
I mean, like the first member of their family that was supposed to have ruled was the son of the sun goddess. Oh. So that's kind of what we're talking about. This is ancient history with, all sorts of I
believe I heard that
myths and legends attached.
They trace their roots to sometime around 660 BC. Is that correct? Something like that. So it's, in any case, it's been a very long time that you've had this same family, but we're coming all the way up to just a few years ago at this point, the particular story we're talking about today. But before we get to that, kind of, if you would, set up the family. This is an imperial family.
Yes.
So it's an emperor, not a king. Mm-hmm. And kind of the family dynamic.
Well, after World War II, the Imperial House passed some new rules to restructure itself, sort of to modernize, but also with the encouragement of the Americans and trying to modernize the country. So the actual it's called the Imperial Household Law, and it basically laid out the rules that the imperial family would function under. So it started out by stating that the future heirs to the throne could only be the descendants of the current emperor, and this was passed in 1947. So all the other branch families were removed from the succession, so it limited it down to a single family and their heirs.
Oh, it was their version of a slimmed down monarchy,
Exactly.
like the British. Interesting. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that led to the situation they're in now, which is that they have very few future heirs currently, and only one male heir who is the only legal heir to the throne.
And it's the former princess we're talking about today. It's her younger brother, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Because her father is the current crown prince.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But he's the brother of the current emperor, not his son, because the emperor didn't have any sons.
Oh,
so
that's
his
right.
brother is his heir.
Right. Is it the current emperor did he only have one child?
He has one daughter.
Yeah. And they're not permitted to have, they're not permitted to have female empresses or something?
Well, the female empresses are kind of the last resort. All male heirs have to be, unavailable from the succession. And even then, a female empress hasn't reigned for several hundred years. So the precedent's a little sketchy. But I mean, it really seems like it's a modern country where they would probably adapt if they needed to. As a matter of fact, before her younger brother was born, there were actually several bills that were brought up in the Japanese Diet, which is like the Congress there. And they were proposing to change the law to a straight, whoever's the oldest descendant is the heir, primogeniture. But then her brother was born and all of the bills kind of stalled and they haven't moved on.
Interesting. Well, it's going to be, we'll see how this goes because the current emperor is, I believe, he's 64 years old. The heir apparent is 17 years old.
Yes.
So it's interesting because just on a personal note, he and the former princess we're talking about, they have almost the same age gap as me and our youngest brother. I can imagine the dynamic there. But the point is that the heir didn't come along for quite some time. And so wasn't there a period of time where there was a lot of uncertainty as to what was going to happen?
So until her brother was born, Princess Mako was the heir presumptive. She hadn't been declared the official heir, but she was the most likely option.
The girl most likely to succeed.
Yes. So she attended all the functions that the heir would. She was, the one that people were looking to. And then, her brother was born and she was kind of released from that.
And that's interesting considering the way that it turned out. I wonder if the birth of her brother kind of, freed her in her own mind to, kind of go out and make her own path, let's say, make a different choice with her life, which she has ended up doing. So let's get into that because I think it's fascinating. Like I said, I repeat myself, but this is something they could take the actual facts of this story, change nothing, and it would be like some kind of not hallmarky in a corny sense, but like one of those,
fictional sounding.
Yeah. One of those, princess marries their true love and what, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's just something that doesn't seem real. So she was born in 1991. So she's around my age. I'm not going to give it away completely, but yeah. Exactly. Don't worry about it. But so she lives most of her life, or a large portion of her life, as the heir presumptive with this kind of hanging, I don't want to say hanging over her head, but
in a way, yes, because no bills had been passed. There were no official statements from the government. It was just kind of hanging there. And it's like they were waiting until there were no other options.
Goodness.
So yeah, it was kind of hanging over her in a way.
So let's get to what ends up happening. So she meets her now husband when they were at university. I believe I read that they were at International Christian University or something like that in Japan. I could be wrong about that because she went to school abroad and things of that nature. But they know each other for about 5 years and they get engaged in 2017. Of course, at this point, her brother's been born.
Yes. The pressure is off.
That's all been handled. So this guy, his name is, I might get this wrong. Is it Kai Kamuro? Kai?
Okay. I will just insert here our disclaimer. Neither of us speak Japanese. We are trying our best, but we will not pronounce everything correctly.
It's true.
possibly anything correctly, but we will do our best.
And I apologize profusely. So, but the thing about this is he is a quote unquote commoner. And according to their law, members of the imperial family who marry outside of that, we need to get into what that means, because I mean, they're clearly not like marrying each other exactly.
I can explain that.
Yes, please do, because it sounds odd.
Okay, so finish your thought and
I was going to say, members of the imperial family that marry commoners, they lose their titles. They lose their rank. They're considered former members of the family when they do that. But what does it mean what would she have had to have done to not lose her title?
So Japan works on a very different legal system from any Western country. So when you marry someone, you become a part of their family. That's a legal status, not just a, family, thing where it's just cultural in the West. There, it's an actual legal status that you have to have changed. You are no longer a part of your family. You are a part of theirs. Also, a thing that's different in Japan from in the West is that men can join their wives' family. So he would take on her name and he would be considered a adopted child of her parents, giving him all of the same status as a child of that family. So
it would be the woman carrying her husband's name, like his last name or something?
That's most common, but like I said, men can take on their wives' names and be adopted by her parents.
She can't keep her last name on.
Oh, she can, yeah.
She could have.
The legal issue here is that if a man were to marry her and take her name, he would have to be adopted by her parents, making him the heir. But that would remove the succession from the Yamato family. He wouldn't be a descendant, which is what they want to preserve. So basically, the only option for her would be to do the traditional thing, which would be to join his family, which means she would have to leave all of her royal titles behind.
Interesting.
Because it's a official change of legal status. You're moving from being a part of one like corporate family unit to another.
Interesting. So who would she have had to have married, or what would she have had to have done to remain a royal?
That's the other thing that's very complicated, because like I said about previous reigning empresses, they either reigned unmarried or they had to be married to another heir to the throne.
So it's almost like it's set up this way in a strange
it's just
sense.
They tend to avoid allowing women to reign. And it hadn't been an issue for so long that no one had to address it.
Interesting. And she wasn't the first in recent history to do this. Let me get this straight, paternal aunt, depending on where you're from, Princess, is it Nori? And I guess there had been some others who had done the same thing. They married quote unquote commoners and then were considered former members of the family, which I just find so odd. Like, it's one thing to lose the title, but no, seriously, I read now that she's no longer a part of the family, she legally she couldn't live in like the imperial palace or whatever it's called with her family anymore. How wild is that?
It's weird. But like I said, it's a whole different way about thinking of family.
Yeah.
In Japanese law.
I can understand that. It's a very different culture. But anyways, before we get to, I guess, her marriage and some of the stuff that went on with that, she's a very interesting lady, because I did some looking into some of her background. At one point she did a homestay program in Austria.
Oh, that's cool.
Isn't that fun? And she studied, I want to say, art history, which incidentally is the same, I believe, as Catherine, Princess of Wales. I believe she studied the same thing at school, art history, something like that.
Princess training.
Right?
I don't know.
And I read that at one point, she worked as an unpaid volunteer at the Met in New York City.
That's so cool.
Which is one of my favorite places in the world.
It's one of the best museums.
I love that place. And I guess she was what's that word?
Docent?
A docent. Thank you. It's all fancy and everything. But she assisted the curators with, like their Asian art collection. I just think that's
cool.
really cool. I also read that she, what was it? She worked as a volunteer after there was an earthquake and a tsunami in 2011.
Mm-hmm.
And she worked as a volunteer in the affected areas. But she did it kind of undercover, like, I guess, without making a scene, or if people didn't know who she was, she didn't enlighten them. Yeah. I think stuff like that is real. To me, that is the benefit of being a royal. That is one of the really cool aspects of that I would think would be kind of difficult to walk away from, to have the ability to help and have an impact in that way, draw attention after the fact in this case. But yeah, I just think some of she just sounds like an interesting person. Like, I'd love to meet her and just have a conversation. She sounds really, really neat. If that's, I don't know if that's what the kids are saying anymore these days. That's really neat. Anyways, but as I said, let's get into the whole love story part of this. So her engagement to, and I'm sorry if I'm saying the name incorrectly, Kai Komuro, was announced in 2017. And as I said, they had both been students at International Christian University. And the wedding originally was supposed to take place in 2018, there's a little drama mixed in here. It was all postponed after reports came out that, let me get this straight, her fiance's mother was in dispute with her, I guess the mother's former fiance, for, I think, in $36,000.
That's okay.
Some of which supposedly was used to pay his tuition fees or something. Like, there was some drama that went on.
So just like his family had some drama going on, so they decided to postpone.
Right.
I mean, that makes sense.
So yeah, I don't know why that had to affect their engagement or marriage plans, but I mean,
maybe it was just like, it was stressful. And if it was a legal battle, then maybe you just, Mom, are you ready to come to the wedding after your court hearing? Oh, by the way, all of the media from around the world will probably show up to take pictures.
Yeah, so check your hair in the mirror before you leave. Yeah, check your makeup. So they're engaged in 2017. They don't get married until 2022. And I think it was basically, they went to the equivalent of the courthouse here in the States and just kind of had a civil ceremony. I mean, that was it. No pomp and circumstance, nothing. And that was it. She also, incidentally, of course, she loses her title. She becomes a commoner. She no longer is princess. She's just Mako Komuro. That's how she's known, Mr. and Mrs. Komuro in English, I suppose. But apparently her marriage was somewhat criticized. Like I said, the drama that was going on at first, the public seemed to really like the two of them. Like, they thought, it's all sweet and inspired.
Princess marries a commoner.
But for whatever reason, this legal drama, which to my way of thinking doesn't sound like that big of a deal, but I guess over there they weren't about it. So the public kind of soured on it a little bit for some strange reason. And so I guess there was criticism of the marriage. And in light of that, she refused the government's taxpayer funded payment of, I think, what would have added up to be about $1.3 million, which is supposed to be given to royal women when they leave the imperial family. So she turned that down. So she was the first female member of the family to forego both like a big official fancy wedding and the payout. So she just walks away, hands it all over, walks away, and that's it. So like I say, doesn't that sound like something straight out of a movie?
It does.
It's kind of almost ridiculous. Like, I love it. I'm here for it, but it's just, it doesn't sound real. But so as I said, gives up their title. She can't live in the imperial quarters, neither one of them. So they lived in Tokyo for a while, but then my understanding is that her now husband attended Fordham University School of Law, became a lawyer. So, one of my own kind, one of my people. And to my knowledge, they live in New York City. He works for some law firm out there, and they're just kind of living their lives like normal people. If you look it up, you can see some, I don't know, kind of paparazzi-ish photos of them just kind of, you wouldn't know. I mean, they're just walking around doing their thing. But yeah, I mean, what a crazy story, right?
And I mean, background. She's a descendant of the oldest continuously ruling family in the world.
Mm-hmm.
She was temporarily considered to be the heir to the throne.
Right.
And she gets to go and live a normal life.
And now she's out just like strolling around the village or something, or wherever it is they live in New York. You know what I mean? It's just kind of wild.
Probably she's that comfortable like that, like, you know,
It
away
seemed
from the strict life. She's been living in the imperial palace.
she seems to
whatever.
have embraced the life of a commoner. I mean,
Yeah.
it's got to be a lot more
She's
freedom.
even mentioned she's been like volunteering, working.
Yeah.
Certain stuff. Probably that's her passion, you know.
Yeah. I don't know what she does professionally. I would assume something in the art world.
And New York, there's a lot of opportunity
I mean,
there.
she could be
You
at the
work
Met
for a
for all
dealer.
I
You
know.
could work with,
Yeah.
a research project.
Mm-hmm. She did some of that when she was still in school. She was a researcher with, gosh, I read it somewhere. I don't remember what it was, but yeah, she's done all that stuff. Oh, she was a project researcher at the University Museum.
So she's
University of
like
Tokyo.
a real life princess doing all of that. Not a fake princess, want to be a princess.
We're not going to talk about that. That's save that for teen shenanigans.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's a really cool story.
It is. I think it's amazing. And I find it interesting. I remember seeing little blips of it, at least in American media, a couple of years ago, because this happened. I think it kind of came to the forefront when they actually got married in 2021. And then people, on this side of the world who we know so little about things in other places, I feel like it's just kind of embarrassing sometimes. But when people figured out that by doing this, she would lose her title and she wouldn't be a princess anymore, then it kind of made the news a little bit. But it didn't last very long. And there's a lot more to it.
Yeah.
So, and who knew that she wasn't the first one to do it, or that that's what happens when female members marry commoners? Does the same thing happen to men that do that?
No.
See, that's interesting.
Because like I was saying, it's about
because the woman joins the family, and so she becomes as if.
And if the man who was marrying her joined her family, that would make him the heir to the throne. And they can't do that. They're trying to keep it within their family line.
So interesting. Well, yeah. So that's the story. And I don't know if we'll ever get updates. I don't know. I looked for updated information. As I say, though, I think they're just kind of quietly living their lives in New York and doing their thing. But that is the story of the now former Princess Mako of Japan, or I forget what her official long title was, but that's the gist. But this has been interesting. We need to do more episodes on Japan. We need to venture into China. There's just so much material. I didn't realize until I started looking into this for this episode, and we just like barely scratched the top of the surface, like not even a fraction of the information.
That she's not even on the news a lot. Like the latest thing is 23 wedding.
Yeah. They're not.
She's not like looking for attention.
No.
Yeah.
Which is what makes
really
to me
cool.
is what makes that really interesting, and somebody you'd want to meet and get to know, talk to.
Like, this is from
Very
April,
unique life experience.
Yes.
April 2022 says Japanese former Princess Mako lands a job in New York City after giving up her title.
Oh, where does it say she works now?
That's in 2022, so 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Let's see. She turned down 1.3 million.
Yeah. The payout. She turned it down.
Let's see.
Which translation, they have to work for their money. That's what that means. Not that
Exactly.
$1.3 million in the grand scheme of things, it's not that much money, especially if you live in New York City. I'm just saying. But I mean, we know it's true, but still,
Yeah,
But also,
that's the Metropolitan Museum job.
Oh, okay. So the Met, could be. Anyway, so
Yeah.
is that it for today?
Pretty much. Aside from that, I definitely think we should revisit some of the Japanese royal family members from
Love to.
different periods
Is it
of history.
technically the imperial family?
Yes.
Okay.
So before we end up, so here's I didn't know that she turned down 1.3 million.
Yeah.
From the Japanese government.
Right.
Because the law over there that the government will pay
Mm-hmm.
royal women who lose their royal status.
Yeah. It's a payout they're supposed to get. Isn't that crazy? So, and she's the first one to do that.
I was a royal too. No one paid me anything. One of my previous lives, I guess.
Our producer's claiming to be a former royal. What house are we talking? Are you secretly like Saudi or something? Like what? Dubai?
I
What?
don't know, but
Are you a distant member of the Iraqi royal family? We didn't know it.
They poor. They are poor. That's actually story.
I know they don't have a lot of money or didn't. Anyways, I feel like we're going on off the rails
a little bit.
We're going a little bit off the rails. I got to remind myself this is not teen shenanigans. Rein it in.
It
Pull
was
it
such
together.
a modern story. It felt a little bit like
Kinda.
that, but a little,
But I really enjoyed it because it was positive and uplifting
Yes, it was
and
great.
sweet. That's not usually what we focus on teen shenanigans, and it's not super dramatic.
The family anymore?
It's not that they're not welcome. It's just that they can't live in the palace and live as royals because they're not royals. If that makes sense.
Yes.
It's not like they are forbidden from seeing the family or, I mean, I don't think that's what it means, right?
no.
That's a very, maybe in the past. No, she's my age.
Yeah.
And
That's very, very young. Like so young. She shouldn't even be,
That's why I said she's young.
Thank you. See, he's scoring points over here. It's a good thing.
Oh.
Again, we're off the rails. We are so off the rails. Rein it in. Anyway, so that's it. I think we should do one on the current emperor.
we should.
He's in his mid 60s. He's lived quite a bit of life, and he's seen some things. So we could do that, or we could go all the way back to the very first one, the supposed first one.
For the emperor.
The former princess we're talking about today.
Yeah.
The heir apparent is her younger brother.
Oh, so she does have a brother.
Mm-hmm. She has
Yes.
a sister and a brother. She's the oldest, but there are 3 of them.
Okay.
Her father is the crown prince.
So in Japanese, it goes to the oldest, not based on gender.
As Luke was explaining,
So
they
it's
kind
oldest
of
male,
prefer.
and if there are no males, oldest female.
Female. Okay. So, but priority to the gender, and then if not,
And then to the
because
oldest.
in the Middle East, no matter what, it had to be the son. Like even if he's the youngest,
Yeah.
one, he goes to the boy.
That's
And then
okay.
if there's no boys, then it goes to the female.
Yeah, that's like this.
But yeah, or I think it goes to the cousin. Or
To be fair, that used to be the case in most royal.
it has to go to.
In most monarchies, the men were favored. Not all and forever, but I feel like
Actually, it
tends
goes
to be.
As far as I know, it goes only to males. So if let's say the king does not have a son,
Mhm.
then it will go to his nephews. Or
Yeah.
his brothers.
His brothers.
He doesn't have like brothers or only sisters, and they have a male.
Mhm.
The oldest male then goes to.
So here's where this particular succession, almost crisis, got interesting. It's that every single member of the family who's eligible to inherit the throne only had daughters until her younger brother was born.
Ooh.
So no matter what they did until he was born, after the current crown prince finished his reign, it would go to one of the daughters, but they would have to marry someone who wasn't from their house.
Mhm.
So it would be the first time the imperial house would change in 3,000 years.
Mm.
So
Wow.
he would have been adopted, but he would have been born to another family and
Right.
not been from their bloodline. So that was like a big deal until her younger brother was born.
Yeah,
It was like, this is the first time we will change royal families. Technically, the name will still be the same, but the family will be different.
Well,
It's like so ancient history and arcane. And
well, that young man definitely has his life locked in, I'd say.
Pretty much.
That's it.
Yeah, since we're talking about Japan, there's a show. We watched the first 2 episodes called Shogun.
Shogun. Oh, yeah.
It's interesting.
It is
It's a nice
interesting.
show. Cool so far.
What time period is that supposed to be taking place? It's when the Portuguese are over there,
when
like
the
dominating
Portuguese and
everything.
The Spanish were kind of ruling in a
Yeah.
way, and the British, they were against the Catholic Church at that time, and that's what. That
Ooh,
time
so
period.
maybe we should talk about
Yeah,
the royal family or the imperial family
So when
at
the
that
British
time.
made it to England, the Portuguese, they were telling the Japanese, no, they are pirates. There's
Yes.
nothing like that. There's no land like that. They are pirates trying to take your land. It's an interesting show. The actor, he's been in several movies, like English movies, but he's so famous in Japan. He's good. I think it was supposed to be based on a true story.
Well, I know that it's a remake of a previous film that was made, and then that's an adaptation of a book that's supposed to be based on true events, but who knows?
Well,
and that's that time period is really interesting because it's before the, so
if that was based on true story, is it related to this family, I guess?
So in that time period, there was actually a sort of restructuring of the power. The imperial house had been removed from any active control of the government, and the shoguns were they were basically started out as the head general of the empire. And they took over all the power from the imperial house and just told them to stay in their palace down in Kyoto. Exactly. And they would rule the country. So they effectively took control and ruled as a royal family until they were overthrown. Yeah,
because it shows that the imperial house, they were kind of a prison inside the house. They can't do anything. Because he was they got that in the series, they got that British guy, and he was like, no, this dude, he's the one who said, I'm fine. They're like, you're a prisoner at his prison, which he's imprisoned at the palace in a way.
Yes.
So he's still a prisoner.
Yeah.
So he was safe inside the palace. Outside the palace, he was not safe.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, this has been fascinating, I have to say. We're sitting here developing our next episodes probably in real time. But anyway, is that it for today?
I think so.
Wonderful. It's been a lot of fun, enjoyable as always. Thank you for joining us. We really hope that you enjoyed this episode. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. If you have suggestions on other families or time periods, since we're kind of over in Asia at the moment, or the Far East. If there's something in particular you're interested in, you want us to talk about, look into, let us know. We don't bite, as I always say, not too much anyway.
We love suggestions.
Yes, it's very helpful to us. We really enjoy that. Any type of comments or interaction with listeners, we really appreciate it. As I said in the beginning, if you're not already following us, we're on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, X, formerly known as Twitter, and YouTube. Definitely check us out on YouTube. We're posting a lot of these episodes, the podcast episodes, in addition to our Teen Shenanigans show, which is, it's the more modern, current events, gossipy side of royalty. So if you enjoy that sort of thing, definitely check it out. But that's it for today. Join us again next time. Thanks for being here.
Bye.
The Royal Chronicles is written and produced by Hanna Luke and Luke Haney. Executive producer Mustafa Mohana.